Hello, everybody. This is James Cool. It's always James Cool. At some point, I think I'm just going to stop introducing myself, and then I'll probably get yelled at by somebody. But once again, I'm James. I'm the producing artistic director at Tipping Point, and we are continuing our series of talks with artists that are connected to Tipping Point or the community or that we know. And we're talking about everything. We're talking about creativity. We're talking about past experiences. We're talking about what's happening now with people and doing a lot of promotion of things. So today, exciting day, as we have apprentice number 2 that has chosen to come on and talk to me again. For some reason, I don't know, I guess it's hard to get past apprentices to talk to me. I call them. I call them all the time. So today I have Amanda Ewing. Hello, Amanda.
Hi, James.
Hi. Amanda was an apprentice when? When were you an apprentice here?
2011. 2011 to 2012-ish.
And the shows that you worked on at that time?
Death Trap, Ordinary Days, the one that Tracy was in with Peter Prouty.
Mrs. Mannerly.
Mrs. Mannerly.
Yep.
And something else I can't remember.
Something else that was in there. But that's, I mean, we do a lot of plays. Like it's
there was it was Dave and Daba and Sandy and
Miranda Looking. Nose. Norm Foster Looking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The red nose.
Yes, the red nose. Yep.
Yeah. That's it.
Excellent. But the one that I want to say that sticks out most in my mind of the work that you did while you were here actually isn't any of those. It was the props design for Red King's Dream. Is the one that I continue to remember. Yeah,
props design, set dressing, dramaturgy. The beginning of my love story with Chantal Gatica, my best friend in the world. Yes, that also sticks out in my mind.
But that was one of those ones that it was a beautiful marriage between set and props and the set dressing, because if people remember with Red King's Dream, there were all of these shelves and all of the shelves were filled, but they weren't necessarily filled with books. In fact, I think there were very few books actually on the shelves. It was everything else.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff in the shelves. I hid a bunch of stuff in there just for me. I still have a few of the books. There's also one of the Emily Post guides from Mrs. Mannerly was in there. There was a whole bunch of like past props and things hidden in the shelves too.
There was a lot of clocks. I remember a lot of clocks.
Lots of clocks. And just Brian Scruggs' beautiful lighting design. I can't get over either, the way it like went through those books.
And the light fixtures that were just the bare bulbs hanging down. And then on the wraparound
underneath, the
you
books could see all the way underneath with all the libraries that had given us books and magazines, and I touched every single book because I'm very particular and sorted through them all so that they were themed in sections that made sense. Yeah. Lots of books about dead presidents in there. In large sections. There's like a whole Eisenhower section.
Because apparently there was a library getting rid of their Eisenhower collection.
I guess so.
So Amanda and I have something else in common besides Tipping Point. Both of us did our undergraduate studies at Elma College that we go back to. So I guess like the question that I have was, did it have anything to do with the Elma connection that you wanted to do the apprenticeship, or was that just sort of a coincidence with things?
It was half and half. Nati Salgado was doing her apprenticeship at the time that I applied, and I was finishing my master's program and looking for a way to move back to the States because I did my master's program abroad in London, trying to figure out how to make some connections when most of my professional network wasn't in the US.
Right.
So it was half like, this is an Elma thing, there's a connection there, and half sort of like, I mean, Nazi's also an Elma connection. But partially that, you know, my friend had been there and was like, it's a good experience, you'll like it, you'll get something from it.
And was she telling the truth?
Oh, yeah, it was
But
good.
no, this is I always, this is in all seriousness, like when I did my apprenticeship at the Purple Rose, and even with Elma, there's an intensity that goes into the study and at Elma College, and there's an intensity that goes into the apprenticeship at the Purple Rose, and there's an even with the graduate studies at Wayne State as well. There is that sort of focus, and you need some distance, I think, from that to really kind of look back at it and go, no, that actually was worthwhile, or I learned these things, or these are the things that I'm still saying today that actually surprised me. So there's my question for you. Now that you've had some time to let things dry, what in your mind stuck out or sticks out as something that that you learned or that you've been taking with you since the apprenticeship?
Yeah, I think that's my dog Maisie. Sorry.
That's okay. Love
I think
dogs.
that a really big thing for me is connections. And it's not just the people that I had met there and gotten the chance to learn from there, but it was the like after, which is also like is also my experience of Alma. That it's like not necessarily people I went to school with that are still impacting me, but people who went to Alma. So I don't know, I think of it as the Tipping Point Apprenticeship Survivors Club. That like a lot of us have like talked and worked together and like know each other pretty well, and have participated in BoxFest together. That there's a lot of relationship building that happens. And I also got a lot of good, I never want to grant write again, but I got a ton of grant writing experience at Tipping Point. And at the time, I really thought I wanted to grant write. And I went after Tipping Point to do more grant writing for other people. And then like eventually was like, this worked for me because I had a balance of like the creative work I was doing at Tipping Point and the grant writing.
Yeah.
But like the grant writing on its own was not my jam.
Yeah.
Oh, here she goes.
Oh, is she coming? Are we is she gonna come and
No, she's
visit?
just howling. She's a pit bull who howls,
Ooh.
sort of like a hound, and it's so strange. So she's obviously my dog. She's strange.
Yeah, she's strange. Yeah, obviously she's your dog. So
Yeah.
since leaving the apprenticeship, you've continued, I want to say, a journey that is involved with theater. So it wasn't that you finished the apprenticeship and said, I am never doing that again. That it continued on. So you went to, right out the gate, did you go to the University of Michigan? Or
No, I did. Here's another thing I got from my Tipping Point apprenticeship is that you and Tipping Point helped bridge for me like a professional career to help me carry on from my apprenticeship to whatever my next step was going to be. Part of that was grant writing for Tipping Point, but also a connection to the Michigan Equity Theater Alliance, which is what I did right out of
that's
my
right.
apprenticeship, was be the interim executive director of that. And then from there, I became adjunct faculty at Schoolcraft Community College in the theater department.
That's right. Okay. Yeah. No. Wow. This is bringing back memories now. Yep. Okay. What else? What came after that?
After Schoolcraft, I went to, and these are like day jobs that I'm describing. There was also theater producing in there. And making. But after that, I went to Heritage Works Theater Company, which is an African dance ensemble in Detroit, where I was the company ensemble member for their youth ensemble, which was incredible social justice education. And they just do really beautiful work. They're a really wonderful organization. And from Heritage Works, From Heritage Works, there was a period where I thought I was going to get a PhD. That's what it was.
Oh, right. Yeah. Mhm. As if you
I,
weren't smart enough.
yeah,
That was something that I always used to say when you were here as an apprentice. Amanda, I'm fairly certain that you're smarter than me.
yeah, I thought I was going to get a PhD. I'd been accepted for a program for performance studies at UT Austin, and I was in Austin when I got the interview for my current job, which is I'm the director of the University of Michigan's Educational Theater Ensemble, theater company.
And what does that mean? Like,
What
is
does it mean? Yeah.
there's a lot of words there. Yeah, what does that mean?
So we use theater, applied theater, to teach, basically. So it's everything from big produced shows during orientation about transitioning to college, mental health, sexual assault prevention, living with a roommate, not like being your primary caretaker, in a big produced show, to like small facilitated conversations that use theater to practice bystander intervention.
And these things that you are producing and making, are they specifically for the University of Michigan as tools, or are these things that anybody that maybe we have some other university people that are listening to this, they're like, I would love to check that out. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I am happy to share resources with university folks. In that role, our performances are only for undergraduate students, and they are performed by undergraduate students. They're not theater students. Most of them, I mean, some of them are, but most of them are not in the theater department. They're students who have done theater in the past, or students who are interested in social justice education, or students that are interested in facilitation in some way. And my ensemble, one of the things that makes it unique is that all of my students are paid. It's their campus job. So they're paid hourly for rehearsals and performances, and I'm not their professor, I'm their boss.
Nice.
And so we have like a different relationship that can be a little bit closer to like a mentoring relationship, different than the power structures that might exist inside a classroom.
Yeah.
So I don't have to grade anything, which is a plus. And when the other like part of that company that's really unique is that all of our programming, the majority of our programming is mandatory. So this year our programming was delivered to 9,000 incoming students.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and we're in our second stretch, this bystander intervention piece that'll go to the 7,000 incoming students at U of M for this fall.
That is extraordinary. Like, I mean, even like the topics of to broach there, something as simple of, you need to take care of yourself now. That's. Mm-hmm.
You might get homesick and you might not.
Right.
And like people also have feelings about like everybody around me is homesick and I'm not. There's something wrong with me. So even being able to sort of sit down and be like, no, nothing's wrong with any of you. You're fine. Yeah. Like homesickness is a thing that happens, or maybe it doesn't.
Yeah. And are you creating this? Like, do you sit down with your employees and say, all right, let's devise this? How, what is it? Are you creating it from scratch? Or is this something where you get the memorandum of like, oh, here's our script today. This is what we're gonna do.
No, we write it together with my ensemble. So during the academic year, I have about 50 students that I work with. And during the summer, I have about 20. And we might take last year's script and say like, okay, what are we keeping? What are we not? Like, what's not true anymore? What offices have changed location?
Yeah.
And also like what's authentic to your experience? And so we'll go in and we'll rewrite together. And then I'll also take it to our campus partners and say, I've got a good cross section of this campus population and these 20 students, but you serve thousands of students. Mm-hmm. So what's the larger like campus picture that we need to make sure is included here?
Yeah. Oh, that sounds fantastic. That
It's
sounds
super
lovely.
fun.
It's yeah, like I'm like that's super interesting. We could just talk about that all day, but we're not going
No,
to. We're
no.
no, because the thing that I want to get into pretty specifically, even though it's highlighting like how do you do that now with COVID? Is all of it online, or are you meeting with your students? Actually, that is a good question. Like I'm curious. Are you meeting still with them, or is all of this now being transitioned into virtual things?
So we've been doing online rehearsals, which is wow, what a thing. So many of our games do not work on the internet.
Tape ball is so much harder when we're not in the
So
same room.
my favorite game is a game called Kumcha, which involves like squatting and rhythm and like passing things, and it's impossible. Um, the improv project has done a great job of making like online improv games that you can play. I've used a bunch of theirs. But yeah, we're meeting for like 4 hours at a time in the Zoom call. And we take breaks. We take breaks.
I was gonna
They go
say
out,
4 hours on the Zoom call. Eee.
they go out and film things. We do writing prompts and then deliver and perform our writing prompts for each other, working in small groups. We've also all learned a lot about editing, me and all of my students, because they've created solo projects that are self-edited.
Nice.
Yeah, about anything they want it to be about. So there are things from imposter syndrome to a history of affirmative action at U of M.
Yeah.
All sorts of things.
And I was just, all right, this is the last side tangent, and then we're going to move on, right? But I was just talking with someone else the other day about imposter syndrome and that being a thing right now with artists because we've been stagnant for a while, how that's sort of like rising. Like when we go back to work, are we going to remember what it is that we do? And it's kind of, there's a little bit of it like, what do you mean when we go back to work? We would have imposter syndrome when we would finish this day and then start rehearsals the next day. And
Yeah.
so like it's always kind of existed, but it feels a little bit different now that we've been stagnant for a little bit.
Yeah, I've got a high level of existential dread about whether live theater exists when I come back to it. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know what
Yeah.
the answer to that is. I'm sure
I don't
everything looks
either.
different. We evolve, things change, and
There are so many things, Amanda, that I think that we have in common, and that you've mentioned today, like how we overthink things, that it has to be perfect, that we share existential dread, like these things we have in common. But let's move forward, because you had mentioned before, throughout all of these sort of like career jobs, you've been producing theater. And the thing that's coming up that I wanted to talk to you about specifically is BoxFest. So for the people that are listening that don't know, what is BoxFest?
great. BoxFest is a women's theater festival. It's an annual festival that seeks to support the work of women directors.
And how long has it been going on?
This is our 16th year.
Right around in there.
Year. Yeah.
And you haven't been involved all 16 years.
No.
In fact, if I'm correct, if I'm not correct, I know you're going to correct me. The original people who started it aren't there anymore, and it's totally been evolved and passed on to you and a group of other very wonderfully strong women theater makers.
Yes. I think Kelly might have been there from the beginning. Molly was also involved. So Kelly Rossi and Molly McMahon were both involved in the beginning.
Were they? Okay, so I am wrong. Okay.
But not in like a leadership-y position. Maybe Kelly was. We're going to do a BoxFest history as like one of our BoxFest we have an oral history. And we're just gonna get in a Zoom call all together and record it as part of this year's festival. We've been joking that we're gonna do it like Drunk History on what's that on Funny or Die?
Yes.
And that we'll like have somebody act it out. But that's what That's what we think we're gonna do.
I don't know how I can support this or be a part of it, but I do.
Yeah.
I support this idea. Uh,
So it was started. Molly and Kelly were a big part of it and have been the most stable stewardship of the festival. I was actually brought in as I first was involved with BoxFest as an actor in a play directed by your sister-in-law, Hillary Seafard.
Yep. Who,
And
for those of you that don't know, Hillary directed True West for us. She was slated to direct the Thanksgiving play for us at the end of this last season, which of course got canceled for things. But absolutely a fantastic director.
incredible. Yeah, so she brought me in as an actor right before I left for grad school. It was the summer in between Elma and going to grad school. And then when I came back, I started directing for BoxFest. One of my favorite things about BoxFest is that we don't require you to have any experience directing. The only requirement is that you are a woman. And so I had no experience directing when I signed up. By the time I was actually directing, I think I had assistant directed for you on what was the Hamlet thing? No,
I Hate Hamlet?
I Hate Hamlet.
I Hate Hamlet. Mm-hmm.
That was another one I did at Tipping Point.
That's right.
I directed on I Hate Hamlet right before BoxFest started, where I was a director in that. And after a few years of being a director in the festival, they asked me to join as a producer. And
so how many years have you been with them?
For 4 years.
As a producer?
4 years as a producer, and this is my second summer as the artistic director.
And this summer, or very recently, because I'm pretty sure that you added a fourth member.
We did. We added Kinnicky Jones.
There you go.
Who is an incredible director of multiple mediums. Kinnicky is a theater director, but she is also a filmmaker, which we were already planning in November when we started having meetings to plan the festival with Kinnicky, to be doing a film festival with BoxFest this year. That was already in the plan. We were going to have one box because the festival is scheduled in boxes. One box that was all going to be film.
Nice.
So we were already like moving towards that.
Mm-hmm.
But now the entire festival is film.
Right.
We do have a cohort of directors that we got together and talked with, who are primarily theater makers who are trying out this new thing, this film thing. And we had 17 films submitted, or 17 films accepted into the festival. We're still in the process of finishing all of that.
Okay.
Uploading. I have to say we're powered by Seed and Spark. BoxFest 2020 is powered by Seed and Spark, which is our hosting platform.
Okay.
Seed and Spark is sort of like Indiegogo for filmmakers.
Okay.
And when the pandemic started and film festivals started being postponed, they created a platform to host film festivals online.
Got it.
And so they're really helping us.
How far out are you from BoxFest happening? How can people get connected in to make sure that they don't miss it? Or how can they get connected in so that they can support it when it does happen?
Yeah. So BoxFest, we are tentatively scheduled for, we launch October 10th. Wait, I'm going to just make sure that's true. I'm up here representing my organization without the dates for this year's festival. Let me just say, do not recommend.
Doing that, there's so
October 10th through October 18th. On Seed and Spark, the best way to sort of follow us would be on our Facebook page or boxfestdetroit.com. And you'll be able to go to the Seed and Spark website, buy tickets per box, watch them at your leisure. One of the big things that's always happened is an audience vote. We are still figuring out how to have an audience vote. The plan is to have one. We'll also be able to host live events through Seed and Spark, so there'll be live streaming. We're going to do our famous curtain speeches through that, and also some Q&As. We would normally have a post-show talkback after the first night, which we will still be doing, having a post-show talkback with our directors and hosting some live events around the festival so that we still get a little bit of community. You know, it won't be a keg in the backyard, but we're still hoping to be with people.
Typically, BoxFest is held at Planet Ant in Hamtramck, right?
Yeah, for the past couple of years, we've been at Planet Ant. We've also been at Matrix Theater Company, the Elizabeth Theater, Furniture Factory when it was still hosting theater.
Yeah.
So a variety of different spaces, but our most recent home has been at Planet Ant.
And there are a number of other opportunities that are connected to BoxFest for women directors. I think like after the festival. So do you want to talk a little bit more about, you know, what, because there's BoxFest and then there's life after BoxFest.
Right.
What is the life after?
Sure. So I'm going to go back a little bit, because one of the things that happened when just like when Kaniki came on as a producer, we started talking about film. When I came on as a producer, we started talking about mentorship. Until pretty recently, did not have a woman mentor in theater. All of my closest mentors were men, and I didn't have that sort of similar experience, somebody that I could follow a path down. Like, there were wonderful women that I worked with, but not necessarily trying to do the same thing I was trying to do. And so bringing that to BoxFest, we started talking about like how could we do that? And also knowing that we have a pipeline problem for women in leadership in the arts. And Franny Shepherd Bates connected the dots. I always credit Franny. She's smarter than me, and I credit her for suggesting a mentorship program. And so what the mentorship program is
Oh, hold on, before you get into the vet, just so people know, Franny Shepherd Bates has directed for us a number of times. She directed Young Americans for sure. I want to say she did another one, but it is escaping me. But she is a director that we have worked with here at Tipping Point. So now the mentorship program. Yes, and a BoxFest alum. The mentorship program is?
Yeah, so the mentorship program pairs a BoxFest director with a woman director who's working in Michigan to assistant direct on a show. One of the problems within the pipeline here is that theaters barely have enough money to cover current expenses. And so taking on assistant directors can be cost prohibitive to theaters, and women working for free is also not our jam, just to get experience.
Yeah.
So what we do as BoxFest is we pay those women to be assistant directors on a production. So it doesn't cost the theater anything, and the women get the good experience and access to mentorship. Tipping Point was our first partner theater, to help pilot it, which was sort of like, James, I have this idea. Do you think Tipping Point wants to try it?
Yeah.
And
I mean, and for me, when you approach it, it's like, it's a no-brainer yes, of course, because just like you have a pipeline, I want to say a pipeline problem from your end, where I'm sitting, I can recognize and see the same type of pipeline issue where I want to hire more women directors, but the amount of women directors that have experience, isn't as much.
You got experience, and you can't get experience until you got a job.
Right.
So trying to make that easier for people to do that work. So Tipping Point's one of our partner theaters on that project. There are a variety of other people. And next year we have to adapt again because so many seasons are changing. So we're hoping to continue working with theaters in whatever way those theaters are working, but also working directly with those directors, so that even if you're not working on a production, maybe you have someone who can talk to you once a month for 6 months about questions you have about directing. What are you looking for in auditions? Like, how do you make a rehearsal schedule? Like, what am I supposed to be doing and saying? Like, these are questions that people have that you would get the opportunity to get answers to.
Absolutely. And the mentorship program, because I know that there are other theaters out there. Detroit Public
has participated in the mentor as like a mentor theater with Courtney Burkett as the mentor. Also, Cassandra Freeman has been a really fantastic mentor for us, and was mentoring at the Detroit Rep past year. Who else have we worked? Angie Kane Ferrante is our mentor at Tipping Point.
And if I'm correct, all of these mentors that are now working in, or in the case of Courtney, leading or a part of the leadership of theaters, are BoxFest alums. Is that correct?
You know, coincidentally, I believe that they all are, but that wasn't something we were necessarily looking for. It just happens to be that if you're a woman director, you've probably worked at BoxFest.
BoxFest, right? But there's part of it where I'm not that I absolutely adore. You brought this up earlier in our interview. It's the common knowledge of or the commonality of experience. Of like you and we understand what it means to go to Alma College and experience that because we had the same director and the same mentor there. We understand that together. The apprentice survivors group that exists. You understand what it's like to be an apprentice and to go through that at Tipping Point. I have that with all apprentices at the Purple Rose.
Yeah.
You know, and so there's this commonality of, I want to say, either struggle or experience that women directors are having done BoxFest. They understand, you know, and want to be a part of that mentorship. I've made it here, you know, let's help make this pipeline better. So I think it's serendipitous more than coincidental.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's we're really trying to hold on to some community things for BoxFest, because a big part of that is it's not just people who are directing for the first time at BoxFest. It's directors who want to experienced directors who want to try something new, experiment in sort of a low stakes environment, dust something off, take a risk. And so one of the things that I really appreciate about BoxFest is that there's a whole variety of people participating. Part of being a part of the community is being able to talk to each other, get feedback from each other, and that continues. Each cohort of BoxFest directors has a Facebook closed group where we're sharing casting issues that we're looking for. We're sharing each other's work. Check this out, look for this, really helping promote each other throughout the year too. Yeah. So that's an ongoing relationship that we all have.
And it's a fantastic one. It's wonderful, in my opinion. I did want to ask one question to make sure that it's specific. When you said that the only requirement to direct at BoxFest is that you had to be a woman, do you mean, is that mean you identify as
Yeah,
a
it's
woman?
a gender thing, not a,
Okay.
yeah, that you identify as a woman.
Okay. Okay, it was just one of those clarifications for anybody that's anybody that is out there. So we're going to get people to connect to BoxFest on Facebook so
On
that
Facebook.
so that we're prepared for the tentative date of
Yeah,
October 10th.
10th through the 18th.
The 10th through the 18th. And we're going to get more people to support, and we're going to figure out this theater
Whatever this
making
is.
in the world of COVID, and figure out how it is that we're going to come back to life, transform for the better.
Yeah, I keep saying I have degrees in making faces and feeling things, not editing film. So I'm working on it. Doing my best.
That's right. That's absolutely, that's right. Amanda, thank you so much for coming on and joining me and talking about all of these things. I enjoy our conversations all of the time because of honestly, because of the intellectual level that we that we come at. I do have to confess one thing before we sign off, and that is something that you shifted my perspective on something. That I continue to this day to use as a specific example for our incoming apprentices. When we talk about dress code, before when we would talk about things, I was adamant about saying no jeans if you're house managing. Like it was this list of do's and don'ts. And I remember that it was it was a matinee, so I happened to be here as well, and you were house managing. And I went by, and just very casually, because it's the do or don't list, I said, Amanda, no jeans when you're in your house managing. And you said, James, with all due respect, I paid $150 for these jeans, and I look fantastic in them. This is professional and appropriate. And that moment, it's like, you want to know what, Amanda? You are absolutely 100% correct. That you shifted my perspective from going from a list of do's and don'ts to a consideration of the level of professionalism that we put out there. And it's an ownership into each individual to express themselves in the way that they feel professional, as my take on what is professional or what isn't professional isn't necessarily your take on it. And so I wanted to say thank you for that. I wasn't sure that you knew of that shift of perspective that you gave me, but I apply it in a lot of other places as well, that I try and get away from list of do's and don'ts and more into, let's take a look at each individual situation. So I wanted to say thank you very much for that.
Awesome. That's awesome. That's an awesome story. I also want to say that I do not regularly spend $150 on jeans. And I'm not wearing jeans at all anymore, because why would you?
You're right. But it was, it is something that I've always admired about you, your ability to be very direct and concise and put things in a simple way that changes people's perspectives on things. And I think that is a talent and a skill that that I think that you should be proud of, or that that I wish more people had. So thank you very much for teaching me. I appreciate you coming on and talking to me, and I will be there October 10th through the 18th to for BoxFest to support all of you as I continue to try and help that pipeline in the way that I can as an ally. Fully recognizing that that we need more, people like you and women in higher leadership positions to mentor upcoming artists.
Thanks, James.
All right.
This is fun.
Well, good. I'm glad. It should be fun. Talking and commiserating should be fun.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you very much, everybody. Check out BoxFest. Amanda, have a good night.
You too.
Oh, no, I don't want to end the meeting for all. Cancel. Stop the recording.